It's been a long time since we recorded like this.
Yeah, I feel like we're out of practice now.
Just properly in the studio. And by studio, I mean kitchen table.
Kitchen studio.
Let's start it up, how about?
How about we do?
Do you want to start one?
Sure.
It's been a while.
Hello there. Welcome to another episode of I Love This, You Should Too, a podcast with me, Samantha, and him, Indy. Hi, Indy.
Hi.
We are back after our summer of adventure, and we are back in the kitchen podcasting like normal. So let's get to it.
Yeah, Samantha told me, get back in the kitchen where you belong.
What?
Although I do belong in the kitchen.
You do spend more time in the kitchen than I do.
I spend a lot of time in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's my place.
Yep. There you go.
One of those
kitchen husbands.
What are we doing, Sam?
So we're gonna do this a little differently. But first we're gonna do some spoiler-free things of the week.
Things of the week. It's been so long since I've had to do a thing of the week, and I picked mine like a year ago, and it was just sitting here, and I was ready to talk about it, and then I realized I'm not ready because I haven't watched it in about a year. But either way, my thing of the week is the television series Atlanta.
Oh, right.
Did you ever watch any Atlanta?
I watched it occasionally when I came into the room and you were watching it.
So you'd see like a couple minutes here and there.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything about it?
Not really. Not really, no. Not at all.
Okay. So Atlanta is an American TV show. It's I would say a comedy. I think a lot of people would say it's a drama. It's a mix of both. It was created by Donald Glover, famous from being Childish Gambino, and then young Lando Calrissian, and Community, and 30 Rock, and all sorts of stuff. A very multi-talented dude. And he plays a character named Ern, who is a college dropout, who then goes to become a music manager for his cousin, who goes by the name of Paperboy, Alfred Miles, played by Tyree Henry. And they have their best friend, Darius, who is played by LaKeith Stanfield. And I love LaKeith Stanfield. He's one of my favorite, I always want to say young actors, because I can consider anyone who is under 50 as like a young actor, because I didn't grow up with them.
Right.
So a younger actor, I guess. I like him a lot. And Zazie Beetz is in it as well as Van, who is Donald Glover's kind of on again, off again partner and a mother. They have a child together. So the show is mostly about, man, this is gonna be a tough one. This is a show where I either need to do a 30-second pitch or we need to do an hour on each episode. It's really hard to do the middle ground because it is a complex show. Okay. So I'll try to keep it short and give you a little pitch. What Donald Glover has said in different instances. Once he called it, if David Lynch and the Coen brothers made a show about hip-hop, this is what it would be. But then he also said that it's mostly based on Tiny Toons. The Tiny Toons cartoon. And he also said it's like Curb Your Enthusiasm, but with rappers.
Oh, okay.
So it's all of that does fit.
That's a lot of things.
It is. And like a lot of disparate things.
Yeah.
Coen brothers and Tiny Toons don't often go together. But you know what? If you blended them, I think you'd get something like this. So it's this like really remarkable mix of comedy, drama, and surrealism. And the surrealism is something that we don't get to see a lot, especially in a show like this. Because oftentimes if you have a show that is, like, honestly, not white, you kind of have to be about that. Right. If you have a show with mainly Indian characters, the show has to be about, like, look at all these Indian people. If you have a show that's about black characters, you have to be like, oh, this is the black experience. And this show is that a lot. But because there are so few shows that have this kind of representation, they aren't allowed to be adventurous in other ways, like in surrealism. And that's what this show does. And that's a part of it being really unique. But then it also attempts to tackle really complex social issues, and it does it with a lot of nuance, a lot of opposing viewpoints, and a lot of creativity. And I think that's where the show really reaches its full potential on these criticisms that it has about modern society. And it often blends the elements of like the mundane with the fantastic. And it can be like real funny, but then also very dark and serious. And in the end, it makes you think, because it's hilarious. I think this show is very funny. But then when it gets into that absurdism and the surrealism and the magical realism, and I guess that's me being like me talking about it. That's like a film nerd way of talking about it. If you were 20 and watching this show, you'd be like, it's about the story, but it's also about the vibes. The show's about the vibes.
So many vibes.
But I call that magical realism.
Right.
To give you kind of an example, the show is mostly about those three characters and their day-to-day happenings and Paperboy becoming a more recognized rapper and becoming successful in that field. But there are several episodes of this show that has none of the main cast in it.
Oh.
So they'll have like a fake documentary about the time a black man was in charge of Disney. And that never happened, but they have a whole documentary about that time where it happened.
Oh, that's fun.
So there's this like kind of alternate reality. And they have an entire episode dedicated to how black culture is commodified and exploited by the fashion industry. They'll have an episode where it's just like a quiet and kind of nice episode about camping with your family.
Oh.
There are episodes where someone is having a dream and then you're not sure which parts are dreams, and then the borders between dreams and realities start blurring. Sometimes you'll have a character who you've seen for 2 years. Now they are a kind of a French spy for one episode. Do we talk about it again? Not really, because it's less about the plot and more about what those actions reflect of the character. That doesn't really make sense. But if you watch the show, I swear it does.
Okay.
One of my favorite episodes was this one called Trini to the Bone, and it's about a, I don't know, like a 6-year-old affluent white child who has a nanny who's from Trinidad. And his nanny dies, and then the family goes to the funeral. And it's funny at first because you have this like little white kid who has all of these expressions that he's learned from his nanny. So he like has a bit of an accent or a patois for certain things he says, and he knows like all of the lyrics to these Trinidadian songs. So that's kind of funny. But then when we go to the funeral, we get to see more of the social commentary that they're making about entire generations, really, of both not just black people, but immigrants of all sorts who are parents to entire generations of rich white people, but then that is to the detriment of their own children.
Right.
And the idea of like, you were a parent to this kid, but you weren't a parent to me. And this whole social makeup, and there's really interesting stuff like that. And then there's just like a lot of good episodes about rap music and how that works. There was one episode where Donald Glover, I think he's not even credited in the episode because they try to say that it's not him, but he puts on this elaborate makeup and a suit so he looks nothing like himself. And he's playing like this reclusive, almost Michael Jackson-like character. And then he did appearances as that character out in the real world. Like they were really working on blurring the lines of reality with this show. And then it kind of rounds out with episodes about things like a rapper faking his own death. And there's a lot of real life parallels to most of what they're doing in this. But then there's a scavenger hunt, which maybe takes you to a literal other dimension. Maybe this is just surrealism and a visual representation of how things make you feel. Like maybe this is the effect of grief on a person, but it is played as literal. And I know me talking about this might seem daunting. It may seem like, oh, this is not a show I'd like to watch. And of course, I love the show and I think that it's great, but I realize that my taste can be very specific at times. And this hits a lot of the specificity of what I love. So if you were someone who doesn't have a similar taste, I could see how you could not be interested in this. So I don't want to say like, hey, everyone, go watch it. So maybe you can like test it out. If you like shows that occasionally confuse you or make you think about the nature of reality, then you're going to like this show. And I realize that makes it sound very inaccessible, but I just mean that sometimes they are after these pretty lofty ideas, and I love that about this show. And it's also just bizarre at times, and I like the bizarre, and I like the strange metaphorical stuff when the bizarre stuff they do is kind of a dark reflection of our own world, or a very specific satire of it. And if all of that makes it sound too inaccessible to you, I think it's also just a straight up funny show with fully realized characters, and a lot of the times in a show that is after kind of big lofty ideals, characters tend to be more one-dimensional, and it's about these big lofty things rather than the characters. And here I feel like I know how every character would react in certain situations because they've taken the time to fully flesh out all of these, at least the 4 main characters, and sometimes beyond that. And it has great performances, some brilliant direction as well, and it's just a visually very pleasing show as well. So it's well crafted, it's amazingly well written, I think, and it has been nominated and won all sorts of awards. So many people put it on their list of best TV shows of the last 25 years. So go check out Atlanta. I think quickly within starting the series, you'll realize if it is for you or not. I think you'll be surprised by how engaging it is.
It sounds like it's so many things.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Could be great because then a lot of different people might like it.
Or it's so many things that it puts people off because they're
Yeah.
like, I was watching this show and then suddenly it's this.
Right.
And they'll just take a week off and you don't see any of the main characters, and it's just this side little thing that is thematically relevant but is not maybe about the same plot. It's really interesting. I loved it. A lot of other people do. You should too. So that is Atlanta. It was, I think, an FX or FXX series, perhaps. So depending where you live, it's out there to watch somewhere.
It might be around.
Yeah. After talking about this, I might have to just rewatch it. It hasn't been that long ago since I watched it, but it is a lot to take in. So maybe a rewatch would be beneficial.
That seems like a show where you could do a rewatch and see it totally differently.
Maybe.
Because you're looking at different things that time, but yeah.
Or just get more from it, I guess.
Get more from it, yeah.
Yeah, so that is streaming on Disney Plus and other places. Go check it out.
Awesome.
All right, Sam, what is your thing of the fortnight?
My thing of the fortnight is a book called The Things We Leave Unfinished, and it's by Rebecca Yarros, and it's about Georgia Stanton, who has to start her life over again after a divorce and has moved back to her hometown to kind of find herself. Her great-grandmother was an author and kind of had this huge fame that Georgia had moved away from. And then her great-grandmother passes away, and there's an unfinished book that everybody wants to release and finish. And she's fighting with the rest of her family to release it. And we get a ghostwriter who's hired, and he and Georgia don't get along. And while reading her great-grandmother's story that is unfinished, they find more common ground between them than they thought there would be.
And fall in love.
This is a really cool book just because you get Georgia's world, and then you also get Georgia's grandmother's world, and it kind of jumps back and forth, but the stories mirror each other in a big way. So it was a really nice read. It was pretty quick, and yeah, you should check it out. It's The Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros.
Was this an audiobook listen for you?
Yes.
How did you like the audiobook?
I liked it. It was such a good story that it kind of felt like almost like watching a TV show. Like you got like a lot of characters and people in it that were really interesting. And yeah, I really enjoyed listening to this one. And it was one of those ones where when it was over, I was like, oh, but I would want to know what happens more. So
are there more in the series? I know you read a lot of series.
This is the only one. Oh. So unfortunately, I don't get to know any more about it, but it was a fun listen.
It's always interesting when authors or artists have things left unfinished. because I was a big Kafka fan, of course, in university, and all of his stuff was kind of like that. There's so much that had to be redone afterwards. I still really, really, really want to read John Steinbeck's werewolf book. He wrote a book on werewolves, and they have it, and they won't let it out.
Oh.
I love Steinbeck. I love werewolves. I think that'd be fun.
That's a great crossover for you. The idea of just having a manuscript that wasn't quite finished is really interesting. And they realize that it's actually her great-grandmother's more of a journal than it is a book. So she ends up learning a lot about her family that she didn't know and that nobody kind of knows. So she didn't really want to release it at the beginning because she thought it was too personal.
Oh.
Yeah. So check it out.
I'm reading Raymond Chandler novels right now. And I know his last one, I'm only on number 4. And his last one was half written by someone else. So I want to see if I can tell.
Yeah. That's always interesting, the idea of ghostwriting and having to write in someone else's kind of style. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to me because I think that would be extremely hard to do.
Well, I think if you're a writer, I think there's a certain freedom in it. I loved when I used to attempt to direct movies and TV and stuff. I loved doing things in someone else's style because it would kind of give you a guideline and you don't have to make as many decisions because you're like, oh, this is what they would do.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. So, Indy, what are we watching for next week?
So this month, rather than adhering to a certain theme, we thought we would try just to be a little more light, a little more loose with things. So I gave Sam a list of things that I was considering doing for my movie and let her pick. Right. So it was less of a I love this, you should too, and more something that Sam has heard me talk about and wants to see. Because I said, like, oh, we could do Blazing Saddles or The Birds. We haven't done any Hitchcock in a while. We've only done one Hitchcock. Some Goodfellas or Crybaby. I thought Clockers. We haven't done any. Oh, we did one Spike Lee. Punch Drunk Love, but I think I have something surrounding that we'll do sooner or later. Some Singing in the Rain, but we've done some musicals recently. I didn't want to do a trilogy like Three Colors or The Godfather because that's too much time before Halloween.
You gotta
be ready for Halloween.
Exactly.
So of the big movies I had seen as a child, there are quite a few that you have not. Perhaps the biggest is Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park. I'm excited.
I was probably a good age for when Jurassic Park came out. I was like 8 or 9, and it was huge. I also haven't seen it in quite some time. I think it's still good, and what I think is especially good is for a movie that came out in 93,
yes,
I want to say.
93.
It looks good because a lot of 90s movies, special effects wise, because it was a huge steep climb through that time as things were getting to look much better.
Yeah, things changed really quickly in that time.
Really drastically when we started getting computer effects in. You can really tell what was at the beginning of that climb and what was closer to the end.
Yeah.
I think I remember Jurassic Park looking great, and I hope it still does.
I hope it stands up.
Because you had said something recently, and by recently I mean in the last 3 years, that you've seen Jurassic World?
Yeah, one of the newer ones.
You'd seen Jurassic World and not Jurassic Park, and I said, well, that must be remedied because I don't know how many Jurassic Park movies there are now. 5, 6, 7? Something like that, including the Jurassic World and everything. And from what I've seen, I think there's one good one, and that is Jurassic Park from 93. Lost World, rough. Jurassic Park 3, is that the one when the Tyrannosaurus is in the city at the end? That might be Lost World. I don't know. There's a lot of bad ones. I think the Jurassic World movies, which were worldwide successes, I think they're all kind of bad. I haven't seen all of them.
No.
All the ones I've seen, I did not care for.
There's 6 that are released and 1 that's coming out in 2025.
All right.
So it's a big world for sure.
So I'd say, 6 movies, 1 good one. And that's Jurassic Park. The ones you have seen, how did you like them?
Well, the only one that I really saw was Jurassic World, and I liked it. It's a cool, world that they've built.
It's a cool
It's a
world,
very cool idea. And I look forward to seeing the first one because I feel like I missed a lot of things just watching Jurassic World because I don't know the backstory and I don't know what Jurassic Park was like in the 90s versus what it was like in 2015. So I'm also excited to see how the special effects differ because that's a big chunk of time and a lot of technology has come out since then. So what the differences between 2015 and 1993 are. So I'm excited to watch this one.
When I was a kid, I think Jurassic Park might have started this, but I tended to read at an older age group. So I loved Michael Crichton. When I was in late elementary and junior high, Michael Crichton was my favorite author. So Jurassic Park and The Lost World. And for some reason, I was like, yeah, I love Andromeda Strain and Sphere and Congo and The 13th Warrior. I really was into a lot of those things. And we watch ER, also created by Michael Crichton.
Right.
He is a very varied author, so there's lots of stuff in it. So Jurassic Park star Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, Richard Attenborough, those kids whose names I don't remember, and was directed by Steven Spielberg. I think this will be our second Spielberg movie we've done, maybe.
Oh yeah,
another big summer blockbuster because it's kind of what he does.
Yeah.
That's what he does best, at least.
It was released in June, so it was definitely a 1993 summer blockbuster.
It was.
Yeah.
It was huge. And the fact that we're still talking about it, the fact that you can drive around most cities and see at least one car that is painted to look like it's from Jurassic Park.
Yeah, for sure.
People love painting their car in Jurassic Park.
So this is like one thing that I feel like I'm excited about is that it's got such a cult following that I want to be part of it.
I wouldn't say cult following because I'd say it's a huge property that is very, very well known. People love Jurassic Park, and perhaps you will too.
Perfect.
I hope I still do.
Yeah.
I honestly can't remember the last time I saw it. I think the last time I saw it was a VHS tape.
Ooh. Okay. Well, I'm sure we won't be watching it on VHS.
I did get a fancy new Blu-ray. Which has the 3D version, but we don't have a 3D TV. And plus, neither of us really care for 3D.
No, it makes me feel ill.
It just looks a little out of focus to me.
And I feel like when your eyes have to work that hard, you just never enjoy the movie as much.
So currently it is streaming, at least in Canada, on Amazon Prime. I'm sure you can find this somewhere. Go to your library. It's a big movie. You'll be able to find it somewhere. And we are going to talk all about it next week. Any thoughts, hopes, predictions?
I hope the dinosaurs have fun.
You hope the dinosaurs have fun.
Yeah.
You want just everyone to have a good time.
I just want everyone to have a nice time.
All right.
Yeah.
What do you think the plot of Jurassic Park is? I think you probably know.
I think, because I've seen Jurassic World, I kind of know, but I think the genetic stuff that they use to make the dinosaurs, that backfires on them and it goes awry. And they
turn into dinosaurs.
No, the dinosaurs get all unruly and crazy.
Those unruly, crazy dinosaurs. They
Can't
run amok.
Trust them with anything.
No, you
They're
really can't.
just everywhere, doing their own thing.
All right, so go check out Jurassic Park, the original from 1993. Watch it and come back next week when we get to chat all about it. I'm kind of excited because I don't feel like I have to write essays on this.
It's like a fun, light...
Wasn't that part fun?
Yeah.
Oh, this part was cool.
It's like a fun,
This
light
part
movie.
made no sense. How did it get there? But we don't even care because Spielberg did good work to cover that.
Mm-hmm. Let's go.
Let's go.
To Jurassic Park.
All right, we will see you next week. Don't get chomped by a T-Rex. Oh, mostly we'll probably just talk about the cultural influence. Like the Toronto Raptors wouldn't be called the Raptors without Jurassic Park.
Oh.
Nobody would know what a raptor is, I don't think.
True.
Save it for next week.
Save it for the podcast.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
Jurassic Park is the movie you're watching.
I like this music. It's good.